One of the reasons I started this podcast was to be able to provide a platform, an avenue, whatever you want to call it, a medium to share stories that matter around topics that matter, and to hopefully bring on guests that challenge you, encourage you, inspire you, and maybe make you think about something in a way that you hadn't previously. 2020 has been an exceptionally difficult year between pandemics and elections and everything surrounding the topic of race. And I am really excited about today's guest because he is someone who has had an impact on me. And our conversation is one that I really, really pray is one that impacts you. So sit back and listen to today's conversation. It is challenging, it's encouraging, it is heart-wrenching, it's funny. We ran the gamut, and I know that you are going to walk away feeling inspired. Welcome to Business with Purpose. I'm your host, Molly Stillman of stillbeingmolly.com, and this show is all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Each week, I interview an entrepreneur, a CEO, nonprofit director, community leader, or just an incredible person who's trying to make a positive impact, not only through their personal life, but also with their career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact wherever you are. My guest this week is Corey Paul Davis, more widely known just as Corey Paul. Corey is a Houston-based rapper, creator, and entrepreneur. Throughout his life, he has overcome several incredible adversities, including drug addiction in his family and witnessing his mother shot by his own father at the age of 7 years old. Eventually, he completed high school and served his community as a firefighter, where he won the Anne Sullivan Award for Heart and Courage. He has a heart for kids who grew up in similar situations to him, and he started a nonprofit program for youth in the juvenile detention centers of Houston in hopes to provide them with mentorship and resources. They successfully graduated over 100 teens from their HOPE program and built foundational relationships with the youth of their community. Music has always been a passion of his and an outlet for his pain and thoughts. And so he actually started his first media company in 2011 and eventually became a full-time creative entrepreneur. Through music, he was able to amass more than 6 million streams, performed international shows, and built a strong social media presence. He's released 3 studio albums, 2 of which placed on the Billboard charts. As a young business owner, he quickly learned how little he knew about money management due to his lack of exposure growing up in the marginalized low-income community. And this actually started his financial literacy quest that would ultimately lead to his desire to start the Literacy Kings podcast. For over 10 years, he has worked to build his platform as a trusted voice for creatives, entrepreneurs, social justice, and faith. He still believes that this is only the beginning. He is also married to his high school sweetheart, and they have one beautiful 2-year-old daughter. Like I said, this is an absolutely incredible conversation. But before I get to my conversation with Corey, I want to thank a couple of our partners of the show that help to make it possible. Now, do you need an ethical gift this season for the plant lover in your life? How about your crazy cat lady aunt? How about a coffee enthusiast or earring adoring mother-in-law? Well, this Christmas, ethical shopping couldn't be easier. Ama's Uma will wrap and even send a note with your gift. So head on over to shopwithmolly.com for a special discount. Now, are you one of my loyal listeners of the show, or if you ever wanted to sport some Business with Purpose swag? Well, guess what? You can now get my exclusive Do Something Good with Purpose on Purpose tee through GoX. The design is incredible, but here's the thing that I love the most is GoX believes in the power of purchase. They use a simple t-shirt to connect their customers with their apparel makers. GoX customers sustain fair wage jobs that liberate workers from poverty and empower them in their families and communities. They are proud to be a verified member of the Fair Trade Federation. You can shop your exclusive Business with Purpose, sustainable, eco-friendly tee and more at goxapparel.com/Molly Stillman. That's goexapparel.com/Molly Stillman. Now on to my conversation with Corey. Corey, I am so excited to have you on the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. I'm doing great. I'm glad to be on. I'm a fan of your podcast and you as a content creator.
Oh, thank you.
Period. After we connected online, and I got a chance to explore, everything that you've done and doing, and thank you. Yeah,
Thank
it's amazing.
you. Corey, I mean, seriously, I'm just such a big fan of yours as well. So the feeling is mutual. And honestly, I mean, this has been kind of months in the making to get you on the show. And so I'm so honored that you would take time out of your day to be with us. So real quick, before we were recording, and I felt like we have to have this conversation on the show because I feel like so many people relate to this right now, is because we were talking about how like 2020 just feels like we're in the middle of a movie. Like maybe it's like The Book of Eli, because we both like that movie with Denzel. And like, and as we're experiencing it as adults and also as parents and spouses, like when we're in this time, like at what point did we become adults? Like,
Man. Like, will you ever say something and you're like, I sound like my insert. I sound like my mother. I sound like my father. I sound like my grandmother. You know what I mean? Like you say it comes out of your mouth and you try to catch it, you know?
And you go,
like,
oh no.
Don't say that.
Don't say it.
Know? And I don't know when the time, but I was sharing with you, like, I told my daughter yesterday, I didn't even think, it just came out. No, baby, you can't have ice cream until you finish your dinner. And I was like, who said that? Who said that? When did I become that guy?
When?
You know?
Yes, I had the same thing where like, you know, my son, because my kids are 7 and 4, and my 4-year-old son is just a giant ball of energy. He is a very 4 and very 4-year-old boy. And like he will get up from the kitchen table and just like run circles around the house being like, ah! Like for no reason. And so like yesterday I was like, excuse me, sir, did you ask to be excused? And then I like am immediately looking at my husband and I went, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. I just said that. And I'm like, who am I? And I'm like, you will come back to the table and you will finish your dinner or you will go into timeout. You know?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think as we're doing our independent research here, so one thing we can attribute to is kids. Part of it is their fault.
Yes,
because we surely wasn't full bore adult until we had kids.
Correct.
You know, we had to get there, but you know, you could not do things, like you could be hungry and just be like, I'm just gonna eat this cereal until the box is gone because I don't want to go to the grocery store, but then you have kids, you just gotta get up and you gotta do. So I think that's part of it. It's part of their fault.
That's true. Oh, that's fully true. But then it's funny how like I know that some of y'all listening who are parents I am sure that you do this too, okay? Because there are for sure times where like if I'm eating a snack, but I don't want my kids to see that I'm eating a snack. So like my husband's birthday was recently and somebody had sent him in the mail like a package of white chocolate covered Oreos with like sprinkles on it. My husband doesn't like white chocolate and he knows I like white chocolate. So he gave them to me to have, and I didn't want my kids to have them. So like I'm like hiding in the pantry away from my children.
I hear you. I don't know where there was a clip online and it was a lady, she like got the babysitter and she got a babysitter. She's like, oh, I'll be back. And the babysitter was there. And then eventually like the kid spilled something. She went to the garage to get a mop and the mom's like sitting in the car eating McDonald's with her phone in the car. And so she just rolls the window down casually like, what's up? And the babysitter's like, what's up? And she's like, nothing. Like, okay. And she just walks away. Like
the other thing,
only way that she'd be able to enjoy those nuggets, man.
Yes. And then the other thing too that I notice about myself, because like I want to raise my kids right. I want to like, I want to raise them in the way of the Lord and like have, have them consume good media and all those kinds of things. And so like, I'm really careful about like what I let my kids watch or what I let them listen to. And, like the like most scandalous thing that they listen to music wise is like Kids Bop. And, but then like the other day I was in the car by myself, which is very rare to be in the car by myself and like to have a moment to like listen to what I want to listen to. And I found this old playlist that I had made that was like all stuff I listened to growing up. And it was like, and so there I am like driving down the road in my minivan and I'm listening to like Notorious B.I.G., SWV, like Mary J. Blige. It's like all the music of my childhood. And I'm going like, something doesn't match. Like white lady in her mid-30s in a minivan driving down the road, and I'm just like, and I know every word, and I'm like, gosh, but my children can't listen to this. No, they're not allowed.
Right. No, they can't. You have to embrace that moment fully. And anybody that sees you at a stoplight, anybody that judges you doesn't have kids, which means their opinion doesn't matter anyway. Anybody with kids knows perfectly well what's going on.
Exactly. Is I don't have kids in my car, so I'm gonna listen to what I want to listen to.
What I want to listen to, especially because your kid's 4 and 7. My daughter is 2.
Yeah.
So what she grabs onto is so random.
Yes.
So you don't know what she's gonna hold on to. So you just try to, censor it as much as possible. Yeah. So all of the stuff I want to listen to, all of the things I want to listen to, same exact way. I have to wait until I have that moment, where I can just full out on the daddy's playlist.
Yeah, I am so glad that I am not alone in this. Okay, Corey, this is clearly we should have an entire podcast where we just talk about stuff parents do.
Right.
Or we should start a podcast that's called "When Did I Become an Adult?" Like,
ooh, that's nice. That's nice because it's a science to it. Like
really?
you have to see it's a science to it because my mom, she always let us have whatever we asked her for it's like eating and stuff, like if she had something and he said, can I have a bite? Can I have something? She always said, yeah. Right. So as I got older, I didn't know it, but that was like an important thing because I had this internal thing of like, my mom, she would always give. She's a giving woman. Right. And so I'm like, I want to be like that. But in order to be like that, you can only show them what they are supposed to see. They can't see these Oreos. Yeah. Because I don't want to tell them no to these Oreos. So for their sake, you got to eat in the pantry. That's for them. I'm doing this for y'all, not for me.
Okay. See, that'll preach.
It's
Corey.
It's
a science. That is amazing. Okay, Corey. So clearly we
probably should get started.
We probably should. So Corey, you are so awesome. Okay, so Corey, I want you to give us the Corey 101. So just tell us who you are, a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you the shotgun who I am, kind of where I got to today, and then you can unpack this as much as you want to. So I was born in Houston, Texas. I'm from Houston, Texas, a neighborhood called South Park. Low income, 30% high school dropouts. It's the hood. It's on MLK in Houston. It's a lower income, underserved neighborhood. So that's where I'm from. My saving grace when I was younger was my mother's amazing. My mother is fire. She's a superhero. And that's what kept us together. We had a very typical, childhood when I was very, very young. But my father, he actually in the 80s got introduced to crack cocaine. And so he became an addict and became a drug addict in like the 80s. And then that just over time became worse and worse and worse. So as I, became a little older, I'm still a child, 6, 7, start seeing our house change, and he tried to go to rehab and then he relapsed and it was all of this. But you start seeing, the verbal abuse and then the physical abuse, and the mental abuse. You start to see that rise and rise and rise. And so it built a very turbulent childhood. And so what happened, I just kind of lay this all out in the beginning so we can talk, throughout it. I know it's a lot up front, but this was my childhood. So what happened is my father unfortunately could not overcome the demon, of the drug he was addicted to. Yeah. And he actually died when I was like 9. He actually committed suicide when I was 9 years old. So from this point, this was my mom had a lot of figuring out to do. Single mother, low income, 2 kids, and she has to figure it out. Yeah. And so that was a long stretch where I was trying to find my way. So fast forward, I became absorbed with like street culture. I started rapping when I was like 12. I wanted to be a rapper. In Houston, Houston is notorious for like syrup, mixing the codeine with soda and stuff like that
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. So we wanted to do that. We wanted to party. We wanted girls. So that was my whole teenage
Yeah.
years, was chasing that and taking those chances, with my life.
Yeah.
And then, like in every good movie, I met a girl when I was about 17, about 16, 17. I met a girl. And around the same time I met that girl who was a believer. She was a Christian. And my friend, one of my best friends, he got saved. And he started telling me about going to church. And I was, what are you talking about? I don't go to church. Like, I'm from Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Texas. So everybody believe in God. It's the Bible Belt. You're
Yeah.
just born believing in God. You don't have no relationship, but that's just
Yep.
culture. So yeah, I know God. I don't need to go to church. Well, long story short, the Lord used them to start working on me. And when I was 17, I got saved.
Mm-hmm.
And so from the time of me becoming saved at 17, still trying to figure it out, not perfect, perfectly forgiven, but not perfect, trying to figure it out, I end up switching my regular rap to rapping where I contextualize the gospel with hip
Mm-hmm.
hop. And God graced that and allowed me to really excel. Put out 2 Billboard albums, we toured, met amazing people, traveled, and all of this great stuff. And that really set the fire for my ministries, for my music, for my podcast, and everything. Kind of, that was the seed for it, and God just kind of maneuvered me as I went along.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have such an incredible story, and just yours is such a powerful story of the transformation of the gospel. And I didn't grow up a Christian either. And,
Mm.
My life looks real different now than it did when I wasn't a Christian, as I know yours does too. And you also, something I know about you were also a firefighter in Houston,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
just incredible. I mean, I read something where you shared that you'd wanted to be a firefighter at one point, just because you wanted to use that as a way to serve your community. What was the timeline where you became a firefighter, and how long were you a firefighter in Houston, and how did that kind of play into everything you were doing and becoming a Christian rapper and touring and all that kind of stuff?
Right. Yeah. So man, that was God's very serendipitous. Like God was just in the midst of it. I didn't even know it, but he was. So I remember when I was young. I remember young and classic kids seeing the firefighters,
Yep. Yep.
and that's cool, But then I remember when I was in high school, I met this firefighter and he was saying how, he loved his job. And when he told me that at 16, it was interesting because everybody I knew hated their job. Most
Yeah.
people hated going to work. You know what I mean? And so from there on, and my mom would always say, don't do nothing you hate. Don't do anything you hate. If you hate it, just don't even, just leave it, because you'll get trapped there. She was real big proponent on like following your heart. So I said, you know what? Every time I see a firefighter, I'm gonna ask them if they like their job. And I would ask firefighter after firefighter after firefighter, and they all said, oh yeah, I love it. Oh yeah, I love it. And so I was like, oh man, okay, well, that's cool, right? Then the other thing was I saw that they were actually, like, it was a firefighter station 50. It was a fire station, station 55, right up the street from our house. And they would come through the community. And so firefighters in Houston, the firefighters are on the ambulance and they're on the fire truck.
Yeah.
So whether they would come for a house fire or welfare check, checking smoke detectors, smoke alarms, doing tours at the station, they were just very community oriented,
Yeah.
and I always admired them because in our neighborhood, searching for those rays of light, right? It was tough. You come from a lot of poverty, a lot of violence, dope, stuff like that. So seeing those little rays of light
Yeah.
always stuck out to me, right? But then, rap was way more important, So that's what I was doing. I was rapping. Molly was gonna rap. We was gonna get a hit single. We was throwing money out the roof. That was the plan. That's what we was gonna do, right? But as time progressed and the girl I met, I wanted to turn her from my girlfriend to my wife. I knew I had to take care of her somehow, like I couldn't be like broke and married, you know what I mean? So anyway, I was like, well, you know what? The fire department, like, I've always wanted to do it. My music is going well, but
Yeah.
I want to marry this girl though. I
Yeah.
have to do that. That's, so I went out for the fire department, and it took me like 3 different times, but I finally got on.
Wow.
I finally got on at the department. And at this time, my music was kind of like, it was cool, but it wasn't, fully running off yet. And it was like a year after me getting into the department. And by this time I was in my early 20s that my music started to take off.
Mm-hmm.
But this is why I say it's all God, because at the fire department in Houston, the schedule was amazing. So you work like 2 days and you're off like 5 days.
Mm.
So it allows you for this crazy amount of fluctuation to do other things that you want to
Yeah.
do. Yeah. So I had the opportunity to serve, and there at the academy, I actually got grace. I won an award for like the Heart and Courage,
Oh, wow.
award doing the fire, doing the fire academy. And so I was able to take that into
Yeah.
my career. And God graced me to meet some amazing people, experience amazing things. I literally we arrived to a scene one time and a person was lifeless on the
Mm.
floor, and we were able to bring them back to life.
Oh,
All
wow.
right, using CPR. So it just really, as a believer, shows you how powerful that we are in him.
Mm.
Death to life is a real thing. He can only do it spiritually, but he enables us here on earth to work through him,
Yeah.
in order to like really cause true change.
Yeah.
So I was a firefighter for just about 4 years, and it was amazing. It was a combination of my music starting to excel,
Yeah.
and trying to have to pick one, and then the kind of the push to finally resign from the department was my wife got into medical school
Oh, wow.
in another state. So
Yeah.
there you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There-
You just, there you go.
There you go.
That was the push.
There you
Yeah.
go.
But
Wow.
that was my firefighter story and career, and it was an amazing experience.
I love that. So, when you started rapping and you were really into, the Houston kind of street culture music scene, it was actually called the chopped and screwed music scene. You were really into that, and you kind of transitioned once you became a believer to Christian rap. I'm curious, like, what did the people who knew you, BC, before Christ, what did they think of the change that they saw in you? What did they think when they saw you'd make that transition? Were they receptive to it? Were they maybe like, did they not like it? Did they make fun of you? I'm just always kind of curious as to how those people that knew you before reacted.
Right. Yeah. So that's a great question. So you had a little bit of both, or you know what? I would say you had a lot that were encouraged by it. A lot that were, go, yeah, that's right, do that. And then you had a few people that were like, cut it out. Like, I know who you were, like, cut it out. And so you had, those two areas. The thing with me, when I dedicated my life to Christ, the reason why was because I was always in search for something that could like help my people, save my people, and it's a line from a rap song called Big Picture, where the rapper says, this been going on too long to get even. And he's just talking about like the, systematic oppression and things like that. So, that's the thing. That's the tough. You realize how much is going on, and you like, yo, where do you even start, to try to help or fix? So that's what it was when the pastor was explaining to me that like that Jesus had already came and he had already fixed it, and that it was about connecting with him, right? Like worshiping the creator and not the created. Like that lingo was like super intriguing to me, know? And so when I became a Christian, God's grace, not because I'm just that guy, but when I became a Christian, I was more like, yo, I'm finna go get the move for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna be the plug. So it was never about my partners that was still smoking, my partners that was still drinking, my partners that was still like in the street. It was never about me like saying like, I'm a Christian now, y'all need to straighten up. I was trying to go get the move. I was trying to get what we could utilize and bring back and share. You know what I'm saying? So it was more of like, because I never forget when I was walked into church one time and the guy told me to take my earrings off. And I just was like, I don't want to be here. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, as soon as you walk into a place and I'm like, I don't want to. So I was like, I'm never doing that. You know, like, all of it, right? So anyway, so that's what it was. It was the few people that was like, "Are you tripping?" But then more people like, "Yeah, like that's what's up. Go and get it." And the biggest thing was my mom. You know what I'm saying? Like my mom wasn't saved. We didn't grow up in the church or nothing like that. So she was just kind of like, "Oh, that's what's up." But then me and my partner would come to the house and have Bible study and stuff like that. And so she would just kind of peek in until finally she was like, "When y'all having the next one? I'm gonna sit there." You know what I mean? And then like 2 years, not even 2 years, probably a year and a half after that, she got saved.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So it's powerful. It was definitely more champion, you know, and maybe part of that is because of who you put yourself around. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you have to cut off the ones that don't get it, you know, kind of like Superman. You go change clothes so you can come back. You know, sometimes that's the case.
Yeah, that's a tough balance to strike for I think any believer, because there is this balance that we have to find where like we have to surround ourselves with fellow believers who are strong in the faith and like finding those mentors in the faith that are kind of, you know, a few steps ahead of you. And I think about like Paul and Timothy and their relationship and Paul continuing to speak into Timothy's life. And, you know, and then in Proverbs, it says like, as you know, like iron sharpens iron, like you need those people in your life that sharpen each other. And then also we have to strike this balance of being like Jesus, where we're not afraid to go around people who are non-believers, or we're not afraid, like we're not going to go up to somebody and like Jesus would never have walked up to somebody and said, "Hey, you need to take off your earrings before you're around me." Like,
we have biblical proof of that.
Yes, like literally biblical proof. And like if we look at the people that Jesus himself hung around, like, and it's funny because I love reading through the Gospels, and just people who say the Bible is boring, I'm like, I don't know what Bible you're reading, because it is not boring at all. I mean, when you see the way that some of the disciples reacted to the people that Jesus was talking to, and the disciples were like, do you know what this person has done? And Jesus is like, look, okay, like you're gonna need to straighten up. There's so I am a huge fan of the show The Chosen. If you have not seen it, it is so good. For my podcast listeners, you can go back and listen to episode like, I don't know, it was like 20 something with Neil Harmon, who is the CEO of VidAngel. And VidAngel is like the streaming network that produces The Chosen. But The Chosen is a show that is like based on Jesus, and it's like about the disciples getting called, and they it starts off with kind of like you see like the evolution of Peter becoming, or Simon becoming a disciple, and Andrew and James and John and all that kind of stuff. And people always hear like, oh, another show about Jesus, like, is that gonna be real lame? It is not lame, I promise. It's so good. And everybody that I talk to, I'm like, please just watch it and give it a chance. But there's a scene, spoiler alert if you've read the Bible, there's a scene towards the end where when Jesus calls Matthew, the tax collector, to become a disciple, and Simon, Peter, and Andrew and James and John are all standing there, and they're just like, Jesus, what are you doing? Like, this guy can't be with us. Like, he can't be a disciple. And like, and Jesus, and like, just to see it acted out, because it's exactly how it happens in scripture. And just the way how, you know, Simon's like looking at Jesus, like, do you know who this guy is? Like, he's a tax collector. Like, he's stealing from our people. Like, he is a criminal and a sinner. And Jesus kind of looks at Simon and just is kind of like, well, like, I called you. And but then Peter says, but this is different. This is different. And Jesus looks in Peter's eyes and goes, get used to different. And it is just like the like I get chills every time I watch it. And so, you know, that's it. That's it. Get used to different is like the beautiful encompassing, like all encompassing story of what it means to follow Jesus. But you're right. Like it really does take this balance of like surrounding ourselves with people who are sharpening us and helping us along the way, while also like being not afraid to go out there and be in the middle of the mess.
Exactly.
And, you know, and I think that actually leads to kind of Another thing I really wanted to talk about, and I think this is kind of a perfect example, and this is your relationship and friendship with George Floyd. And
It's
and
the perfect set. I don't think you could have got a perfect
I mean,
segue from that.
we did not
I'm
plan
just
this.
thinking through it. Yeah, like
We did.
that's
It's the
yes.
perfect setup because that was one of the ways that you and I connected after the murder of George Floyd. And so you were friends with George Floyd. And I remember after the news of the murder of George Floyd came out, one of the first things that you did was create this video where you were like, we've seen this story. We've seen this story where we know what happened. We've seen the video. We have the evidence, but they're going to change the narrative and they're going to go into his background and they're going to talk about who he was and all the mistakes he made and you're like, no,
don't do it.
We're not going to do it because I know this man and he was a man of peace. He was a person of peace. Yes, he made mistakes in his past, as we all have. As we all have. And so I want you to just kind of share how you knew George and kind of like I said, it's the perfect tie-in to what we were doing. How you guys did this together, where you really were the hands and feet of Jesus and went into these communities and served. And so would you share a little bit about that?
I would love to. So this is how I try to unpack it. So we have to understand as people that we have our own unique experiences. You are familiar with your experience, but if it's an experience or a reality or an environment you're not familiar with, you haven't lived it, breathed it, walked it, the first thing that you have to do is be open to receive, right? Like to understand before being understood, right? So I feel like that sets the foundation for the story. Okay. When we're talking about neighborhoods that like I'm from and neighborhoods like Big Floyd is from, these are low income, systematically oppressed, underserved neighborhoods, right? It's the bottom, it's the hood. Okay. It's a certain way that you learn to receive people and information when you grow up like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, okay, now I'm from South Park. Big Floyd is from Third Ward. It's another hood in Houston. It's just like mine, it's just in a different area. So once I got saved, I told you my whole play was like to bring it to the people, you know? So my church was in Third Ward, right? And so we wanted to go and connect with the people. We wanted to get out there with the people. But you can't just go into another hood and just pull up and start doing stuff. It don't work like that.
Yeah.
We don't know you. We don't trust you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to build some kind of relationship because they've been taken advantage of so much. We've been taken advantage of so much, right? So, just imagine somebody coming in your house and just doing stuff. You're like, bro, I live here. You know what I mean? Like, this is, so when you come into a neighborhood, especially a hood in Houston, you have to find a person of peace. You have to find somebody that is respected, that is loved, that is from there, and that have similar plans and beliefs and ideas as you, right?
Yeah.
It's real hard to make a move without that person.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we came to Third Ward, Big Floyd was that person. We put on a concert. We put on a concert in Third Ward and we went out and invited everybody. We concert, the kids could come out, free food, school supplies, we just trying to give. And Big Floyd saw it. It was right next to his projects. So he came to the concert, and he came with another guy who ended up being one of our partners too. And so we connected at the concert, and he was like, okay, man, he was like basically saying like, that's what's up, that y'all not just pulling up and staying in y'all little pocket, but that y'all created something, y'all trying to give back. That's what's up, right? So later on, when we was out shooting visuals in the neighborhood, trying to connect with people, my partner had a tech shop in Third Ward. So we were like doing Bible study there, free pizza, all of that. We met Big Floyd, and that's where we got a chance to connect. He was like, man, I'm from here. You know what I'm saying? I'm from here through and through, and it's a lot of good stuff here. It's a lot of good people here, and I love what y'all doing.
Yeah.
He said, if it's about God business, it's about my business. You know what I'm saying? So you good. You good. If you whatever you need, you know what I'm saying? You let them know Big Floyd said you good, and I got y'all. I'm gonna let the homies know, right?
Yeah.
So when Floyd, think about it like this, Molly. Think about like you have your brand and you hustling, you doing your thing, right? You trying to get it popping. But then when you get an endorsement deal, you know what I'm saying, with the top, like if you got a beauty brand and you get a Revlon endorsement deal, you know what I'm saying? Like you own now.
Yeah.
That's what Floyd did for the work we were trying to do in the community. Because we were just like, hey, we here, we trying to serve, you know. But once Floyd stamped us, like my partner Najee say, we got that endorsement deal. And he told them, hey, they good, they were just, hey, whatever. And then from that point, Floyd was, okay, what y'all doing? We was gonna do a basketball tournament for the kids. All right, I sign up a team. You know, okay, what y'all want to do? We want to do church. We call it Church in the Bricks, where it's the outside basketball court. Hey, Floyd, we want to block off the whole basketball court and do church. You good? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay. We got these baptism pools. We wanted to, okay, we'll set that up. Like helping us run plays. Yeah. Floyd literally would drag the big Floyd. He literally dragged the big baptism tub outside. You know what I'm saying? Help us fill it up, and we end up baptizing one of our partners in that same tub. Wow. You know? So here's the thing. The reason why when that happened with Floyd and I came out with the video is because when you're not from where we're from, or you don't have a heart, or you haven't leaned in to listen and understand it. If you're not from it, you haven't leaned in to understand it first. What you don't understand is all that stuff they're talking about Floyd past and all the things they say he did and all the things they said he was a part of. Because Floyd had found the Lord and was doing a 180 and trying to be a better person, with that past that they try to demonize, it gives Floyd a voice. Mm-hmm. The young boy's gonna listen to him because he got stripes, he got scars, he been there. He know what he's talking about. So all of the misguided youth or the juveniles that need help or that need advice or that we want to save. Yeah. Floyd's in the hood. That's the secret. Yeah. That's the secret to that. Employing and encouraging and helping with resources to the Floyds in the hood. That's how you actually do that. The misnomer of like, we're gonna ascend, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like strangers are gonna ascend and help. We don't want to hear what you got to say. Right. You know what I'm saying? Until you come in, right? And we can form that kind of bond. And you're gonna only be able to do that through a Floyd. Yeah. You know, so that's why soon as it happened, I just knew it's a stale old playbook. Yep. This the same plays they've been. All you have to do is read a book or read documents from speeches, and it's the same plays that they've been running forever. So I knew what they were going to do and they tried, you know what I'm saying? And so that's why I just felt it was so important, because it's like, you never heard of this man before in your life. You don't understand the years that he's put in, trying to help. And we legit, homies that was on the block baptized. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Changing up, how they moved, Floyd was advocating against gun violence. Boys that came off the streets, went on tour with us, put some dope down. Like, he real live working, and so we just felt it was necessary for people to understand that, it was more than just whatever you can Google about him. You would never truly be able to understand it until you first lean in and listen to the voices that he served with and served,
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that about him and his life. And, I think, and I know, obviously I know, this, because this is your lived experience. And like, Black people, when a Black man or a Black woman is murdered, like, they know it's the same, like you said, it's the same playbook. It's like, they're going to dig up anything they can in their past to somehow justify this like moment in time. And so for you to be able to just share that, I appreciate that and I honor that. And thank you. And the way that George Floyd's life, like how he started a revolution. I hate the way that it happened. It shouldn't have happened. It just shouldn't have happened. But in so many ways, like, and I don't know, and you can tell me, you can be like, white lady, you're wrong. Don't, like, I disagree. But there's something about the murder of George Floyd that feels different. The conversations that are happening in our churches and in our homes and in our families and in our communities feel different. And they are heated, and there are disagreements, and but I feel like there's a different type of shift that we are seeing. And I kind of liken it to like I work out a lot, and I could do the same workout every day, and it could be real easy, and I could not push myself, and I would see no changes in my body. But instead, like, I do a different workout every day, and I try to do one more rep, and I try to do heavier weight, or I try to, go a little bit longer, and I push my body to a point of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And when I'm uncomfortable, that's when change in my body starts to happen. So I go to something called Burn Boot Camp, and one of our trainers there, like she used to always say, she's like, if you're not a little mad during the workout, then it's not good enough. Like you want to like be a little bit mad during the workout, because then you're like, oh, I hate this. But then afterwards, like you feel like, oh man, that was, but like I realize it maybe is a silly analogy, but like that's what I feel like we are going through. Is it's gonna be uncomfortable, and we're gonna have uncomfortable conversations, and we're gonna get a little mad, and we're gonna not feel great about it, and we're gonna mess up, and we're gonna say things we shouldn't, we're gonna do things the wrong way, but that is how long lasting change happens. So feel free to disagree with me. I would love to be like, lady, you're wrong. But
No, I don't. I genuinely don't. If I did, I would, but I don't. I agree with you. I think why anyone could or would or does disagree with that this is different, because obviously that's a hot topic. Like this feels different. No, it's the same old thing, right? Like that's kind of the two sides. I think that it all comes down to, what do we do with this? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like anything, right? Like you talk about working out, is that you going that extra distance for like being uncomfortable, right? And then even as you're working out, understanding yourself and understanding what's going on. So I feel like this is a moment that we have that can spark continual change. I do feel that, but it's not magic. No moment will be magic.
For sure.
I think people, they when you disagree with like, oh, it's the same thing, I think you have this concept like, you think Dr. King marched one time and then there we go. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it doesn't happen. Like, no, it's no. I get it. So it's no shade, but like the chant, we want justice, we want it now. I get it. I get the chant. I'm not bothering nobody, but it's not practical. Right? Like, we wanted justice, we want it over time, continuously. It's more accurate. It's not a good chant, but it's more accurate. You see what I'm saying? And so I think that's the thing, because what George Floyd, with Big Floyd sparked, it's on us now. You know what I mean? And what are we going to do and continue to do with where that has started to take things? So no, I don't disagree. I feel like we have to be more optimistic, because as a Black man, I know that we're nowhere near perfect, and we got a long way to go. But I also know that I have more opportunity than my grandfather did. You know what I'm saying? And that came from slow, progressive, change over time.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to me. Like, I have a couple really good friends who are in interracial marriages, and like every year on Loving Day, they just think about the fact they're like, in like my parents' lifetime,
ain't that crazy?
We would not have been able to get married. Like, that was only 50 years ago. Like, that's not that long.
That's not that long ago. That's a whole episode. That's a whole podcast series right there. It's just what you're saying. The things that we're talking about is not that long ago, right? My mom was born in 60. That we were still, Black people were still fighting for the right to vote when my mother was born. You know what I mean? So
like when you look at the progressive change, and again, like we fully admit like that we have a long way to go. But I mean, to see the change, I mean, and I even think about the fact that like I was like, it had been 15 years, only 15 years, like when I was born, that interracial couples could get married. 15 years. Like that's not that long. That's not that long. We're in the year 2020. That was 2005. Like that is not that long ago. And so, so not only looking at that, I mean, like my husband's parents, my parents, like they grew up in segregated schools. I mean, my
That's
dad was
one generation.
my dad was in college when desegregation happened.
Wow.
Like, that is mind blowing to me. My dad.
And I think that if you just stop anyone who doesn't understand how far we have to go, you just take that right there. It doesn't have to be this big grand debate. It could just be, it don't have to be about race. Let's just be about time. Right? Just take it about, let's just use time, and if you say this group of people have only been able to do it for X amount of time, this group of people have been doing it for this long, what group do you think has a larger event? You know what I mean? You can take race out and just make a math equation. And it's not that it is. And I think with that, it's so we can see the issue so we can be a part of a solution. You know what I'm saying?
Amen.
Like, it's not about like, you did this, you did that, it's their fault, that does nothing. It's just recognizing the magnitude of something in order to better equip ourselves for a lasting solution.
Yeah. And I think too, and it definitely it differs depending on if you are coming at it from a biblical worldview versus like a secular worldview. And let me also be the first to say that, like, Christians screw this up all the time. Like, the Christians have been some of the worst offenders of this, and we talk all the time about how Sunday morning is the most segregated hour of the week. And so Christians by far like screw this up a lot. But sometimes, like, I sometimes, like, when I have conversations with some Christians who like try to disagree about the racial justice movement, and I go, like, what Bible are you reading? Like, this isn't new. Like, there have been racism. Like, racism has been like since the beginning of, since Genesis. Like, we can go all the way back to Genesis and see racism. Like, in the New Testament, like, Nero was crucifying Christians, like lining the streets with people on crosses and burning them. Like, he was, I mean,
because they were different.
Right. I mean, like, sorry. I mean, sometimes I just am like, guys, what
are you looking at? What are you reading? How are you seeing this? I think it has everything to do with being self-centered. I think anytime you're self-centered, you miss it all. You miss it all. So you can read the Bible self-centered. You know what I'm saying? You can read a Bible where they're saying, like, you can read, you can read a Bible where it says, forgive your enemies. Right. And you'll automatically be like, I should forgive my enemies. Well, maybe you're an enemy. Right? Maybe you're the enemy that someone else needs to forgive. So it's all about perception. And I think whenever you become self-centered, that's how you miss all of that. We were watching the show, me and my wife was watching a show called Amazing Race. And it's they race across the country, these people trying to race for money. But anyway, this couple were in this poverty-stricken neighborhood in Africa, and the lady, she was just so mad that she had to deal with this poverty. Like, she was just disgusted that she had to deal with this poverty and the smells, but it's funny if it wasn't so sad that you're that self-centered that you're angry by having to deal with the poverty that they were born and live in. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I think whenever you look at self first and then out, you're gonna miss a lot.
Yes. I mean, and the Bible, like, literally has an answer for just about everything. And I mean, in the first chapter of James, like, there's a verse about how if someone is a forgetful hearer of the word, and not a doer of the word, they're like a person who looks in the mirror, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of person he was. And it's just like, he looks in the mirror, and it's just like he is all about self. It's all about me, and how can I look at, how can this fit my life, and how is this, everything, the world revolves around me. And they're not a faithful hearer of the word and a doer who works and somebody who really takes to heart the word of God. I mean, and we can look all the way then into Revelation, where it says, like, at the end of the age, like, every nation, every tribe, every tongue will all be together worshiping God. And, like, he's not talking about I'm sorry. Maybe I'll ruffle some feathers. He ain't talking about middle-class white people. Like, I'm sorry. He's not. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, heaven is going to be this beautiful picture of God's creation and his created order. And that is just, if we aren't fighting for our brothers and sisters, for who look different than us, for the least of these, for people who need to hear the good news that Jesus didn't come for one type of person.
Right. And I think it's perfect. Like, your mindset with that is perfect, and you're a great person to talk to about it, because so we talked about, I have a real good friend of mine, brother by the name of Trey Nine in Houston, and he's a white guy, and his ministry is smack dab in the middle of the hood. That's where he does his ministry. And we were talking on the phone about, game planning and stuff, and we were talking about the understanding of, or the difference between being racist or the difference between being not racist and being anti-racist.
Yep.
Like, that's a conversation, and understanding the platform, and the opportunity that you have. So when you talk about it from the perspective of a white person, right? It's not that, well, you should do this, or you should do that, or you have to do this, or you must do that. You have the opportunity, you have the space, you have the platform to reach and to talk to and to connect with privately with people I just don't have, right? It's people that are going to receive things from you in a way that they may not receive them from me, So it's understanding that it should be like a beautiful burden, right? Because in the reverse, I got a lot of young homies that come up and think a lot of the same, man, F12, F the police, or, forget white people, they did this and da 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 da. It's my responsibility, I feel, it's my beautiful burden, because I look like them and I'm from where they from, to aid in building a bridge and bringing information and encouraging them in a progressive, united way. You know what I'm saying? So I think it has to be, more on that understanding. Like, you can't look at like we do it on all levels, right? Like, that's why it's, the animal shelters. It's because, hey, they can't, they need help. You know what I'm saying? Like, they need help. So anytime we see someone that needs help in any set, right, you can take it from that to, oh, these babies don't have anywhere to go. We need shelters. You know what I mean? We need adoption agencies. Oh, these women are having problems with domestic abuse. We need something for that. Anytime as humans, from the micro level to the macro level, that it's a problem or a void or a need that should be filled, we should want to say, especially if you're a believer, how can we help? How can we serve? So I believe that it doesn't have to be it can't be a you versus me or us. It cannot be. It will never work that way, but it has to be a united front, for that progression. So I think your mindset is perfect when you talk about it.
Yeah. And the importance of like linking arms and saying to one another, saying, you know what, like, I don't know what I don't know, or I'm going to mess up. And instead of like being accusatory towards each other or attacking each other, or like just being divisive and like, well, if you screw up, like, that's it, you're canceled, like cancel culture. Like,
oh, man.
if we can't humble ourselves and have a conversation where we link arms and we say, you know what, we're going to hike this mountain together. I'm probably going to stumble and scrape my knee. And I'm going to need you to pick me up. And I might need you to put on a Band-Aid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but we're going to stick it out together, and we're in this together. And that is such a rare thing to find today.
It is.
Because people are so angry. And they, and with good, like, reason, people have rights to be angry. But But again, James is like a packed book of the Bible, but like it literally says like everyone should be slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to anger, because human anger does not accomplish God's righteousness. And so like our anger is not going to accomplish anything. Yes, we can feel angry. God doesn't, God had righteous anger. Jesus himself had righteous anger. So like, yes, we feel these emotions and we are allowed to feel these emotions, and we should never dismiss emotions or gaslight or dismiss someone's lived experience. However, we have to take those emotions and then we work through them, and then we work through them together, and we move forward together. And we, you know what I mean?
Exactly. I spot on. I believe it's the only way that we can do it. It's the only way that we can do it, and to continue to build a better place for us, you know, for us as people, not just Black or white or Hispanic, but for us as people. It's the only thing that makes sense. I agree.
Oh man. Yeah. You know, and I just, I think that conversations like this are so important, and being willing to, again, just to humble ourselves. And so, you know, and this is this conversation that sometimes I see people say where I'll see white people be like, well, I don't want to have to apologize for being white. And I'm just like, nobody is making you feel guilty for being born white. Like, like y'all,
I think, and you know, and I don't know how other people feel about this, but this is how I see it. I see it as like, I'm a man and you're a woman, right? It is very clear that I, as a male, I'm speaking from as a male perspective, have had more advantages in America than you, right? Like, that's well documented. I think it was it the 60s or 70s that women could get bank accounts without their husband having to sign or something like that? Like, it wasn't that long ago, as we talked about before. Wasn't that long ago, right? So, as just a reasonable person, now you up at the level and say, as a Christian, I hear this large group of women going, hey, we're not getting treated equally. We're not getting treated fair. We're being slighted. It's not about me apologizing as a man, but if I am a male, right, and I don't have the problem that you have, my question is like, oh, well, what's up? You know what I'm saying? Like, what needs to be done? What should I be listening for? How can I serve, you know, this cause? Because I don't go through those things. I hear my wife or my homegirls talk about things they experience, and I'm like, that happens? People do that? You know what I mean? Like, I've never experienced that before. I didn't know that was a thing, because I don't walk around as a female. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I see it when it comes to Black and white. It's not about, you know, apologizing or having to feel sorry for, but it's just recognizing a very clear advantage and disadvantage, and then leaning in and going, do I have something I can offer to this situation? You know what I'm saying? It could just be, I have one of my homegirls I met in the fire department. She's white, and she's from a suburb of Houston. So she didn't really have a lot of interactions or relationship with a lot of Black people. So me and her relationship was probably the first authentic one that she had. And so she would just be like, can I ask you something? And anytime she said that, I knew she's gonna ask something that you can't just ask any Black person. You know, like, if you don't, you know, and every Black person's different. I personally am an open book. You know what I mean? Like, if you genuinely are trying to get better, I genuinely have all the answers, right? So she asked me, because we were riding in the ambulance, and she asked me, she said, this station you listen to, it says like, it's like a Black radio station, and it's like Black radio, Black owned, Black college. She's like, why is it okay for it to be Black, 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 but if it was like white, 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 it would be deemed racist? As pure and as genuine as she could ask that question, as the questions that she asked. And so my response was, well, in America, everything is inherently white, right? Like, that's everything was founded as white. Radio, colleges, everything is automatically white. You don't have to make something white, but things were not inherently Black. Over time, we had to fight and carve away. And so we started so far behind that now it's a curated experience that they're trying to have,
Yep.
that they're trying to develop, that they're trying to build, and focus. And and she was just like mind blown,
Yeah.
like, oh, it is, because it's not about blaming. That's not her experience. She doesn't have these deep conversations. She's lived the life she's lived, but just in that little conversation, it was just a little light bulb that went off. Not every conversation won't be like this, and
Yeah.
people can say you should know this or you should know that, but the point is that it wasn't me saying the white radio is the devil and da da da. It's not. It's just facts. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just our history. We don't have to debate about it. But we can be participants of a different present and future.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point that I want to kind of highlight, is how you talked about how, like, you're somebody who, if you're coming from a genuine, I want to learn and do better, like, you're an open book. But I think it is important, because not every, like, don't go calling your black friend,
not like that.
Like, because your black friend is not the encyclopedia, like, on black culture. Like, Google is your friend.
There you go.
Google is your friend. And then also knowing the type of relationship that you have with somebody. Like, don't just text your random black friend and be like, can I ask you a question? Like,
don't do that.
Don't do that.
And I give you a cheat code. Now I give you a cheat code. And I'll tell you this. I'll say this. You can say Corey Paul said this. They can hit me up they can DM me about it. If you go and seek understanding on your own, if you go read a book about Black history, Black culture, go watch many Black African Americans, Many Rivers on PBS, or if you go and seek your own knowledge, and then you are kindly and considerately trying to engage one of your Black friends, and they have a problem, they're the problem, right? Like, so don't be scared, because that's the other side of it. That don't be scared. Just because somebody's Black doesn't mean that they are, like, it's not perfection, because on both sides, we got work to do.
Yeah.
And I got some Black homies that they feel like they ain't got to talk about nothing. And we get into debates. I'm like, yes, bro, if somebody is trying, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you should come alongside of them. Now, that's my opinion. That's my personal opinion. But I feel like, if I'm trying to understand something about women's rights and I did my due diligence and I call Molly, I feel like I'm trying here. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, because she's someone who spoke about it and she has a platform about it. And I would think that that's a safe space. So I think that's the other side. Yes, do not just randomly be texting. But if you go do your own research, you go do your own due diligence, bro, I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to come alongside you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And this is what I got. And they got a problem. Don't let that cut you off. Don't let that make you go, okay, I ain't gonna ever say nothing about nothing again. Just go ask somebody else.
Yeah.
Hit me up. I'll answer you.
Yeah. And I think, again, it all goes back to like the importance of relationships and just following the model that Jesus had, and like the relationships that he had with people, and how people weren't afraid to ask him questions. And he wasn't afraid to have answers, but he created relationships with people, and there was love, and there was humility, and there was mutual respect and understanding. And even, like, you look at the story of the rich young ruler, where the rich young ruler is like, man, Jesus, I really want to follow you. And Jesus is like, all right, cool, go sell everything. And you can follow me. And then the rich young ruler, what happens? He walks away. He can't do it.
Yeah, I can't do it. I'm gonna head out.
Right? And so, like, there are these perfect examples, but then you see Nicodemus. Nicodemus was a Pharisee, and he was, part of the Sanhedrin, and like he humbled himself, and he came to Jesus in the secrecy of night, but he humbled himself, and he asked these really tough questions of, and there was a relationship there. And so, I mean, there's just so many, again, like, for people to say the Bible's boring, I'm like, guys, there's so many examples of so much that we have to look towards, and we can work to model our lives. We will never be Jesus. He set a standard that we will never be able to achieve, but we don't have to.
Right. Exactly.
But
and what you said works on both sides, right? Like, that's what I always think about. Like, exactly what you said. Like, as a white person, or as a Black person, or as a man, or as one, who am I to ever think like, how dare you question me, right? Jesus was questioned, like,
all
Jesus
the time.
He was questioned. He would give answers, and then he would give answers to the answers that he gave, and if Jesus is not beyond a few questions,
Right.
who am I to think that how dare you question me? You
Yep.
know, so
Yeah.
I that's how I view, that part of scripture
Yeah.
of Jesus fielding all of these questions, and explaining himself and re-explaining himself several times,
Yeah.
still, boys falling asleep on him and
Yeah. Yeah.
just
I mean, and I think about it kind of coming full circle. Like I think about with my kids, like
Mhm.
from a very early age, I've set, my husband and I, we've set an expectation and a standard in our home where there is no question that's off limits. There's
Good.
no question that's off limits. And I've said, like, if I don't know the answer to your question, we'll find out together, and I'm not saying like you need to divulge all of it. You answer in age appropriate ways,
Right.
but by creating a space early on where my kids feel safe to come to me with their questions, then as they get older, then they're going to come to me first about some of the really hard stuff versus going to Google or a friend at school or somewhere else I don't want them to go and get the misinformation. So, creating again those safe relationships with people. And also, and like you said, going to God with your questions and wrestling with that stuff. Like, God is not afraid of your questions.
Right.
Like, he is not going to be offended by what you ask him.
Right.
His created order is designed in such a way that we can't even begin to understand it fully. And so we have to wrestle with those things. Like,
right.
We're supposed to. So,
that's good.
Yeah, man, I just, clearly we need to have like 3 more episodes together.
I mean,
I was like, I'm going to go 45 minutes and here we are over an hour, and I could have like so many other things I want to talk to you about. I'm going to take a quick break from my conversation with Corey to thank a couple more of our partners of the show. This episode is brought to you by The Lemonade Boutique, a women's clothing with a cause store. Featuring ethically made and fair trade items from over 10 countries, every item is made by women facing extreme challenges, such as trafficking, poverty, and more. Your purchase empowers women to take life's lemons and make lemonade. Shop at thelemonadeboutique.com, and listeners of the Business with Purpose podcast can save 15% by using the code PURPOSE15 at checkout. I want to thank another one of our partners of the show, and that is Simple Switch. Now, Simple Switch is no stranger to this podcast. I've had the founder, Rachel Coyce, on the show, and they are just such an incredible supporter of this show. And I love that this is a website that you can go to get literally everything, and that is so applicable this holiday season. And so I have Rachel here with me to kind of share what Simple Switch is offering this holiday season. Take it away, Rachel.
Hey, Molly, thanks so much for having me on. Obviously, the holidays are this really special time where we get to love the people in our life, especially in 2020, get to kind of show people some extra love. It's also such a time of consumerism and confusion about company ethics. So we really try to be that one-stop shop where you can get something for, your 90-year-old grandfather, and also the friend in your life who just really needs to pick me up this Christmas. So I hope that you guys will join us there. We've got more than 3,000 products. Every single product has some sort of environmental or social impact, and we're really excited to have you.
Yes, and Simple Switch is offering an incredible special deal just for Business with Purpose podcast listeners. So you can go to simpleswitch.org and use the coupon code Purchase with Purpose for 20% off your order. 20% off, which is just amazing. So go to Simple Switch. I know, it's amazing. Go to simpleswitch.org, use that coupon code Purchase with Purpose, get 20% off your order, get all of the shopping done off of your list, and you are going to be set this holiday season. All right, now back to my conversation with Corey. Corey, a few things before we wrap up. One, I want to say thank you for having this conversation and sharing your experience, especially with Big Floyd. And but real quick, I want to just kind of talk. So what you're doing now? So you left actually a label that you had gotten an album on the Billboard charts with, went all the way up to 16. And then you kind of went independent, and then you have started a podcast called Literacy Kings. Just talk a little bit about what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so this whole conversation it leads right up to that. It leads perfectly up to that. So what I'm doing right now is Literacy Kings. Literacy Kings is currently a podcast with me and my homie Jay, aka Jay with the MBA. We have a podcast where we break down popular financial books in culturally relative ways. We contextualize it. We use examples that are relatable to people who are from low income, underserved areas. If you've read any financial book, you know that the valuable ones are often written in a way that you probably need to know a little bit about this already. You know, they're going to mention ROI or balance sheets or earned income, or, you know, they're going to talk about things in passing. And if it doesn't have a connection to you just tangibly, but then also culturally and relatable, right? It's hard. I'm struggling to pay my bills, so it's hard for me to think about investing in stock or buying real estate or getting my LLC and building out a business and good debt versus bad debt. And it's hard for me to get all of those things because, as we all know, nothing is just physical. It's mental, it's emotional, right? And so on our podcast, that's what we do. We share our experiences, we share our past, we share our pain, but we tie it all into contextualizing financial books. And the first one is Rich Dad Poor Dad is the first one that we went through. And so the goal for Literacy Kings is that it will turn into a podcast network. And so that the music and the information continuously can be created, and we can create more voices. We can help other voices and more people that have something to say, and curate it toward any group of people who've been marginalized.
Wow.
You know, that's our goal with Literacy Kings. And so that's where all of that has brought me. You know, I used to never imagine a world where I wasn't just rapping. And then one of my good friends told me as I was going through my transition, once I had my daughter, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? Am I going to keep going out on the road, or do I need to? And he was saying that, and I hope this helps someone. He was saying, well, I think you've just always been a storyteller, and you've used music to tell your story up until this point. But ultimately, you're a storyteller. So now you're just switching to a different medium.
Yeah.
He told me that like a year ago, and I still think about that almost daily because he was so right.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, that's what we're doing now with Literacy Kings. We're on our second season now. We're going through a money circulation series, and we're just trying to make finances and money more culturally relative and current. You know, we want you to talk about this after you talk about the game that was on, because it's very important for us to build generational wealth.
Oh, man, that's so good. Well, my husband's a financial advisor, so I'm gonna have him. Yeah, I'm gonna have him check it out.
Yeah, please do.
Because that, I mean, that is
notes.
such an important conversation to have, and something he's really passionate about is, you know, kind of, because he works primarily right now with people who are retired or retiring or kind of planning for retirement. And then he's like a Dave Ramsey guy. And so he also like kind of helps people sort of in that early stages. And he said it's really interesting to see the dynamics, because he works with so many people who are in their like 60s and 70s. And so like the mindset of different types of people and how they've, depending on how they were raised and how they handle finances as an adult. And so like he sees it all across the board. And so, I mean, just talks about like, it is so important to be instilling these things in your kids now, because like it affects them for generations.
Yeah. It really, really does. Just, I never heard of or understood the concept of assets and liabilities.
Yeah.
That meant nothing. I was a grown man, didn't know what that meant. And when the first time I read, well, you should try to purchase assets and have your assets pay for your liabilities, I was just like, what does that even mean? You know, and and then it's like, and then you can take the earnings after liabilities and reinvest and accrue compound interest. I'm like, dog, I don't what. You know, like this is all I knew was you go to work, you save money, you pay your bills, and you don't end up on the street. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. Yeah. So when this stuff was like blowing my mind, I'm like, but it's like you said though, like my grandma had a 6th grade education. You know what I'm saying? Then my mom got to high school. you know? So my grandma worked a whole bunch of jobs to just stay above float. My mom was able to come up a little bit, make sure we were straight. All she could tell us was don't do nothing you hate and try to work for yourself. But she hadn't saw over the hill yet. You know what I mean? So that's all she could tell us is what you should do. But how to do it, now that's on us. So that's what me and my brother's doing. We actually doing it. So now for my daughter, I'll be able to tell her, okay, this is what I know to be true. I went over the hill. This is what I saw. You know what I mean? And we can start building it from the ground up.
Yeah. My husband he tells this story about how like both his grandparents on his mom's side and his dad's side handled generational wealth very differently. Like his dad's dad grew up in like small town, like one of the poorest counties in the state, Eastern North Carolina. And like just kind of, he was never in debt, but like he basically built his house with his bare hands, like, you know, ran a furniture store and just kind of like never was in debt, but it was just kind of always building more like spiritual wealth in the family. Whereas like his mom's dad, you know, was a candy salesman and literally had the coolest job ever, like selling candy. But then like he was really into the stock market. And so he invested a lot. And so he left like generational financial wealth. Whereas like his dad's dad didn't leave debt, but didn't really leave any like, you know, it was just a different type of the way that they handled money and the way that they like his mom's dad had grown up in the western part of the state in Greensboro. And like, so that was just a more city life versus like very kind of rural Eastern North Carolina with like, again, poorest, like one of the poorest counties in the state versus sort of like this big city has the example of like investing and all that kind of stuff. And so, and how much he's learned about building generational wealth, not only financially, but also like a legacy for your family from both of his grandparents. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah. So that's so important. Beautiful. So I love the way that you guys are doing that. Love the way that you guys are doing it. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, we hope to keep doing it and keep building it and tell more stories. So I really appreciate that.
I love it. Okay. For the listeners, I will have all that information in the show notes as always. But Corey, this is my favorite part of the show where I get to ask just a couple of fun get to know you questions before we go. So Corey, are you ready for the get to know you round?
I'm ready.
All right.
I give you the honest answers I got.
All right. What song that as soon as it comes on, like you have to sing along with it when you hear it? Like it's just that song that the moment it hits, you're like, I gotta get it.
Man, I'm from the South, so as soon as I hear make them say, na 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 na,
yes,
you got to
make them say,
you got to,
na 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 na, yes.
Yep.
I feel that. I feel that deep in myself. So
I love it.
I grew up outside of DC, which is a real big go-go scene.
Yeah.
So there's certain go-go songs where like I'll hear it and I'm like, a scenario. Like I hear it and like immediately I'm taken back to like
So it's not even you. It's just
it just comes out. It comes out. And I'm a big because again I grew up outside of DC, so like a lot of those DC radio stations, that's what I grew up on. So I listened to Tupac and Notorious B.I.G. and like 90s R&B. There is not a genre of music like 90s R&B, like Keith Sweat, Brian McKnight, Drew Hill, like all those, right?
Yo, I don't know what was going on with me emotionally. When little girl in elementary had like my heart or something. I knew Babyface songs.
Yes.
In elementary.
Yes.
Like elementary.
No, this is elementary school. This is what I was listening to in elementary school. My mixtapes in elementary school had like Soul for Real and all those songs. Yes. Like my love, do you ever dream of candy?
I won't even engage in a debate about 90s R&B. If you don't get it, I have nothing to say to you. I have nothing to say.
No.
I love it.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Okay. When you get home from work, from a long trip, what's the first thing you do when you get home?
The first thing I do soon as I get home, I say the first thing I want to do is gym shorts, t-shirt, couch.
Yeah.
Like That's like gym shorts, t-shirt, couch, and then my mind to go from there on whatever else I need to do. But like, that's it. I'm hitting it.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna hit it.
I
If my
love
daughter
it.
want to crawl on top of me, or if I need to get my
Aw.
orders from my wife, whatever. But I feel like that relaxes me into a place to where I can do other things now.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a particular artist that has influenced you the most?
Oh God, that's the hardest question.
I know.
Okay. So, okay, can I do three? I'm gonna do three.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna do three. So the first I'm gonna say, and it's an artist name, it's a rapper named Jadakiss.
Mm-hmm.
And he was with Rough Riders and DMX.
Yep.
And he had the storytelling and these punchlines when I was a kid that I would literally, like, he was like on the level of like Nas and Biggs to me.
Yeah.
And he came up with Big,
Yeah.
you know? So Jadakiss was, when I was young, I would try to figure out, like, it was like reading a book for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Trying to figure out how he created these punchlines. So he was like one of the first, right? Then taking it to music, it's an artist. His name is Dre Murray. And he is phenomenal. He's a Christian. So that was my second stage, because once I became a Christian, I was like, okay, I rap, but now I'm a Christian. Is there such thing as Christian rap? I didn't even know if it existed. And I found this guy named Dre Murray. Amazing, right? The third artist, and that's be my third and final one. I'll go back to my make them say, business wise, Master P.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my goal in life, is to do what he did in business independently.
Yeah.
You know, so those three, Jadakiss, Dre Murray, Master P, those are like it's like my tripod of storytelling and business.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. This is my last question. This is a question I ask all my guests. And that is, Corey, what does it mean to you to run a business with purpose?
Man, I take it back to the beginning of the podcast. For what it means to me, is ironically the same thing it meant when I was a kid and before I even knew it, is that I have to find a way to help my people. That's always been a thing. And so through business, that's still my goal. That's what it means. The purpose is what I do that can live long after I'm gone.
Yeah.
And so that's my goal within business. That's my purpose, is to create a platform and to pour into people. And long after I'm gone, the words and the relationships will keep going.
Yeah. Man, Corey, this has been just incredible. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You are amazing. And just, I'm going to continue to follow the work that you're doing, especially with Literacy Kings and all of that. Thank you for this conversation. And you are the man.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here. I wanted to talk about your golf. We'll do that on another show. Yeah. So just know I have so many things to ask you about as well.
Yes.
Because your life and your current endeavors are just so intriguing.
Thank you.
It doesn't seem like one person can do all of those things, but you have. So I legitimately say I'm honored to be on.
Oh,
and
thank you. You are the man. Okay, friend, I would love to know what you loved about this episode or something that you learned. If you do, let me know on social media. You can find me at Still Being Molly or at Business with Purpose Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. And don't forget that hashtag Business with Purpose Podcast. Another thank you to our partners of the show, Simple Switch. Don't forget to use that code Purchase with Purpose for 20% off your first order. And the Lemonade Boutique, use code Purpose15 for 15% off at checkout. Ama's Uma, go to shopwithmolly.com for more. And GoX Apparel, go to goxapparel.com/Molly Stillman to snag your exclusive Business with Purpose tee. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. Be sure to visit the archives for past shows featuring incredible entrepreneurs and business owners who are changing the world with their businesses. And if you're a regular listener of the show, thank you for your support and for tuning in and week out. Be sure to head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Radio Public, or wherever you listen to podcasts and click that subscribe or follow button to help make sure that you never miss a new episode of the show. And while you're there, would you take a moment to leave a review? Leaving a review helps me to know what you're liking and how this show is personally impacting you. This show is produced by the incredible team at Third Wheel Media. Thank you so much for listening. Now go do something good with purpose on purpose.